The awakening of Aliana. In the quiet dawn of her home planet, Aliana stood on the balcony of her small quarters, gazing at the vast expanse of stars that twinkled in the velvety sky. The air was crisp, filled with anticipation and uncertainty. Today was not just another day, it was the day she would take to the skies for her first mission against the Zarkan invaders. As she breathed in deeply, she felt a mix of excitement and fear coursing through her veins. Aliana had always dreamt of becoming a pilot, inspired by tales of legendary heroes who fought valiantly in space battles. But now that her moment had arrived, she couldn't shake off the nagging doubt that lingered in her mind. What if she failed? What if she let everyone down? Shaking off these thoughts, she donned her flight suit, its fabric snug against her skin, a reminder of the responsibility she bore. As she made her way to the hangar, Aliana's heart raced with every step. The sound of machinery whirring and pilots shouting filled the air, creating an atmosphere charged with energy. She spotted her ship, Starlight, gleaming under the hangar lights. It was a small but agile fighter, equipped with advanced technology designed for speed and precision. "Hey!" Aliana called out Rian, her best friend and fellow pilot, waving enthusiastically as he approached. "You ready for this? I hear it's going to be intense." Aliana forced a smile, trying to mask her anxiety. "Yeah, I'm ready," she replied, though doubt lingered in her voice. Rian clapped her on the shoulder reassuringly. "You've got this. Just remember your training. We're all counting on you." His confidence was infectious, and Aliana felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. Once inside Starlight, Aliana went through her pre-flight checks meticulously. Each button pressed and each system activated brought her closer to feeling in control. The cockpit hummed with life as screens flickered on, displaying vital information about their mission and enemy positions. "Attention all pilots," boomed Commander Thorne's voice over the intercom, cutting through Aliana's focus like a knife. "We are facing an imminent Zarkan attack on our outer colonies. Prepare for launch in 10 minutes. The urgency in his tone sent adrenaline surging through Aliana's body. She tightened her grip on the controls as she visualized what lay ahead: dogfights among asteroids, evasive maneuvers against enemy fire, the very scenarios she had practiced countless times in simulations. As Starlight lifted off from its docking bay into the vastness of space, Aliana marveled at the beauty surrounding her. Swirling nebulae painted in hues of purple and blue contrasted sharply with the dark void beyond. But there was no time for awe. She quickly joined formation with Rian and other pilots as they headed toward their target zone. "Stay sharp." Rian's voice crackled through their comms channel. "We don't know what we're up against yet." Aliana nodded even though he couldn't see her, his words resonated deeply within her. She was no longer just a girl from a small colony, she was part of something much larger, a fight for survival against an oppressive force that threatened everything they held dear. As they approached their destination, a massive Zarkan battleship loomed ahead like a dark shadow against the stars, a harbinger of destruction that sent chills down Aliana's spine. The sight was both terrifying and exhilarating. This was what they had trained for. "Engage at will." Commander Thorne commanded over the comms as they entered combat range. Aliana felt time slow as chaos erupted around them. Lasers streaked through space like shooting stars while explosions illuminated the darkness in blinding flashes. She maneuvered Starlight with precision, dodging enemy fire while returning shots at any Zarkan fighter that dared approach. "Watch your six!" Rian shouted just as a Zarkan ship swooped in behind him. Without thinking, Aliana instinctively veered toward Rian's position and fired at their pursuer just in time to watch it explode into fragments against the backdrop of space. "Thanks. I owe you one." Rian laughed breathlessly over comms. But before Aliana could respond, another wave of Zarkan fighters surged forward like a swarm of angry hornets. Her heart raced as she engaged them one by one, recalling every lesson learned during training sessions back home, every evasive maneuver and every calculated shot. Suddenly, alarms blared within Starlight, jolting Aliana from her focus. Warning! Shields at 50%. The AI's mechanical voice echoed ominously through the cockpit. Panic surged within her. She had to keep fighting but also protect herself from incoming fire. With quick thinking, she executed a barrel roll just as laser blasts whizzed past where she had been moments before. Stay calm. You can do this. Aliana whispered to herself as she regained control over Starlight. With renewed determination fueling her actions, she pressed forward into battle once more, her skills sharpening under pressure like steel forged in fire. Each enemy fighter that fell before her felt like a victory not just for herself but for everyone counting on them back home. As more Zarkan ships fell from formation due to their relentless assault, hope began to blossom within Aliana's heart, a feeling that perhaps they could turn this tide after all if they worked together as one united front against their common foe. But just then, a colossal Zarkan dreadnought emerged from behind an asteroid field, its massive silhouette dwarfing everything around it and sending shockwaves through Aliana's resolve. This is bad, Rian's voice faltered over comms as disbelief settled among them all. Aliana swallowed hard. This was no ordinary battle anymore, it was about survival against overwhelming odds that threatened everything they cherished. As they prepared for what seemed like an impossible fight ahead, a fierce resolve ignited within Aliana's spirit. They would not back down without a fight. And so began their struggle against darkness, their journey toward hope, where courage would be tested beyond limits. The gathering storm. The call to arms. Captain Yarrick stood on the bridge of the Valor's edge, staring out at the vastness of space. The stars twinkled like distant memories, but today, they felt ominous. His crew was gathered around him, faces tense with anticipation. They were about to embark on a mission that could change the fate of their world, and he could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. Commander Redford has reported an imminent Zarkan attack on our outer colonies, Yarrick announced, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. We need to prepare for battle. This is not just another skirmish, it's a fight for our survival. The crew nodded, determination etched on their faces. Yarrick had earned their respect through countless battles, but this one felt different. He had lost friends before, and the thought of losing more haunted him. Preparing for battle. As the crew moved swiftly to their stations, Yarrick took a moment to observe them. Each member was skilled in their role, from the tactical officers plotting their course to the engineers ensuring the ship was battle-ready. Yet, he sensed an undercurrent of fear among them, a fear he shared. Lieutenant Mira, he called out to his communications officer. What's our status on enemy movements? Myra's fingers danced across her console as she pulled up data from their sensors. We're detecting multiple Zarkan ships approaching from Sector 7. They're moving fast, we estimate they'll reach our position in less than 20 minutes. Prepare our defenses, Yarrick ordered. I want all weapon systems online and ready to fire. The weight of leadership. As he issued commands, Yarrick felt a familiar sense of dread creeping in. Leadership was a heavy burden, especially in times of war. He remembered his early days as a captain, full of bravado and dreams of glory. Now, he understood that every decision could mean life or death for his crew. Captain, Mira interrupted his thoughts, her voice laced with urgency. We've received a transmission from Commander Redford. He wants us to provide support for his fleet during the engagement. Yarrick nodded, his mind racing. Supporting Redford meant they would be entering the heart of enemy territory, a risky maneuver that could easily turn disastrous. Set a course for Commander Redford's position, he commanded. All hands, brace for impact. The calm before the storm. As Valor's edge surged forward through the darkness of space, Yarrick took a deep breath and tried to calm his racing heart. He glanced at the viewscreen displaying the Zarkan fleet, ships gliding like predators ready to pounce on their prey. Captain, said Ensign Kira from her tactical station, we're detecting heavy artillery on those cruisers. They're preparing for an assault. Yarrick clenched his jaw, knowing that they were outnumbered and outgunned. But there was no turning back now, they had to confront the enemy head-on. Prepare our shields. I want a full tactical analysis before we engage, he ordered. The first encounter. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the ship as they entered combat range with the Zarkan fleet. The tension was palpable, even seasoned veterans felt it in their bones. Enemy ships are locking onto us. Kira shouted as she monitored incoming threats. Evasive maneuvers. Yarrick barked, adrenaline surging through him as he fought to keep his composure. The ship rocked violently as enemy fire struck their shields, sending jolts through every crew member aboard. Yarrick gripped his command chair tightly, feeling the vibrations reverberate through his body. Return fire, he commanded as soon as they regained stability. A desperate struggle. The Valor's Edge unleashed a barrage of laser fire at the approaching Zarkan ships. Bright beams lit up the darkness of space as explosions erupted against enemy hulls. Yarrick felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with fear. This was what he lived for, yet it came at a terrible cost. Captain! We've lost power in Section 3, shouted Mira as she frantically worked to stabilize systems under pressure. Divert auxiliary power from non-essential systems. Yarrick ordered without hesitation. As they fought back against overwhelming odds, Jarek's mind raced with strategies and possibilities. He knew that if they didn't act quickly, they would be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Rallying his crew. Listen up. Yarrick shouted over the chaos that enveloped them. We are not just fighting for ourselves, we are fighting for everyone back home. We will not let them take what is ours. His words ignited a spark within his crew, determination replaced fear as they rallied behind him. Prepare for boarding maneuvers. Kira yelled as she locked onto an enemy ship drifting closer after sustaining damage. Yarrick nodded firmly. Boarding actions could turn the tide in their favor if executed correctly. The boarders strike. With precision and speed, they launched boarding pods toward the nearest damaged Zarkan cruiser. As they breached its hull and stormed inside, Yarrick led the charge alongside his crew members, each one fueled by adrenaline and purpose. Inside the cruiser's corridors, chaos reigned supreme as Zarkan soldiers scrambled to defend their ship against unexpected intruders. Blaster fire erupted around them. Yarrick ducked behind cover while returning fire with deadly accuracy. Push forward. We need to secure their command center, he shouted over gunfire. A turning point. As they fought through waves of enemies, it became clear that this was no ordinary battle, it was a desperate struggle for survival on both sides. Each fallen comrade weighed heavily on Jarek's heart. Every life lost was a reminder of what was at stake. Finally reaching the command center, Yarrick and his team fought fiercely against Zarkan defenders until silence fell over the room, a silence filled with victory and loss intertwined. We did it! Mira exclaimed breathlessly as she surveyed their surroundings. But before they could celebrate their hard-won victory, alarms blared throughout the cruiser. Self-destruct mechanisms had been activated. Racing against time. Everyone out. We need to get back to Valor's Edge now. Yarrick shouted urgently as he led his team back through the chaos they had just conquered. They sprinted through corridors filled with smoke and debris while explosions echoed behind them, a reminder that time was running out. Reaching their boarding pods just in time, Yarrick felt relief wash over him as they launched back toward their ship, only to witness Valor's Edge engaged in fierce combat against remaining Zarkan forces still determined to claim victory despite their losses. A new resolve. As they docked back aboard Valor's Edge, Yarrick took a moment to gather himself before addressing his crew once more, this time with renewed conviction burning brightly within him. We have faced unimaginable odds today, he began solemnly but confidently. But we have proven that we can stand against them. Together we will fight until our last breath. His words resonated deeply among them, hope surged anew amidst despair. their resolve strengthened by shared purpose against darkness threatening everything they held dear. With hearts united in defiance against tyranny, the storm had only begun. The calm before the storm. Wyatt Staples sat in the cockpit of his fighter, Vanguard, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. The vastness of space stretched out before him, a canvas of stars that seemed to mock his anxiety. He had checked his systems multiple times, each time hoping to find a flaw that would give him an excuse to delay the inevitable. But everything was in perfect order, all systems were green. The countdown to battle was ticking down, and there was no turning back. Wyatt's squadron had suffered significant losses, dwindling from 80 fighters to just 54. Each pilot left in the fight was a testament to their resilience, but the weight of loss hung heavily in the air. He could feel the tension among his fellow pilots, their faces set with determination but tinged with fear. They were about to face the Drajan, an enemy they had fought against for far too long. The arrival of the Noir Navio. As Wyatt adjusted his controls, he switched on the external cameras to get a better view of their surroundings. In the distance loomed the Noir Navio, a massive battleship that had become synonymous with power and destruction. Its sleek black hull contrasted sharply against the backdrop of stars, and Wyatt couldn't help but admire its formidable presence. The Noir Navio was armed to the teeth, plasma cannons, heavy laser turrets, and missile pods lined its exterior like teeth on a predator ready to strike. Wyatt felt a surge of pride knowing that they were part of this operation. Commander Redford was leading the charge from the Noir Navio, and Wyatt knew that if anyone could turn the tide of battle, it was him. The build-up to battle. "Wyatt, are you ready?" Rian's voice crackled over the comms, pulling him from his thoughts. "Ready as I'll ever be," Wyatt replied, forcing confidence into his tone. He could hear Rian's laughter on the other end, a sound that eased some of his tension. "Just remember what we practiced. We stick together out there," Rian reminded him. "Yeah, together," Wyatt echoed. The bond between them felt stronger than ever. They had fought side by side through countless battles and had always come out on top, until now. As they prepared for launch, Wyatt felt an electric charge in the air. The crew worked diligently around them, checking systems and ensuring everything was in place for their impending assault on the Drajan forces. The launch. With a final countdown echoing in his ears, Wyatt felt adrenaline surge through him as Vanguard lifted off from its docking bay. The familiar sensation of weightlessness enveloped him as they broke free from the confines of their ship and entered open space. The stars shimmered around them like diamonds scattered across velvet. "Form up," Rian called out as they joined their remaining squadron members in formation behind him. They flew in tight formation as they approached the Noir Navio, which was preparing to unleash its devastating firepower upon the enemy fleet. "Remember your targets." Commander Redford's voice rang through their comms. "We're going for a swift strike, take out their cruisers first." Engaging the enemy. As they closed in on the Drajan fleet, Wyatt's heart raced with anticipation. He could see enemy ships moving into position, cruisers lined up like soldiers waiting for orders. A sense of clarity washed over him. This was what he lived for, the thrill of battle and the chance to protect those he loved. Missile locks engaged. Rian shouted as he targeted one of the enemy cruisers. "On my mark," Wyatt commanded, feeling a rush as he prepared to fire. With a swift motion, he pressed the button to launch his missiles. They shot forward like arrows released from a bow, streaking toward their targets with deadly precision. Explosions erupted across space as missiles found their marks, debris scattered through the void like confetti after a celebration. A desperate counterattack. But just as victory seemed within reach, chaos erupted around them. The Drajan fleet retaliated with ferocity. Plasma bolts whizzed past Vanguard, narrowly missing its hull. Wyatt's instincts kicked in. He maneuvered sharply to evade incoming fire while keeping an eye on Rian's position. "Watch your six," Wyatt yelled as he noticed an enemy fighter closing in on Rian's tail. In a split-second decision, he veered toward Rian's attacker and fired his laser cannons. A bright flash illuminated space as Wyatt's shot struck true. The enemy fighter exploded into a shower of sparks and metal fragments. "Thanks. I owe you one," Rian replied breathlessly. "No time for gratitude. Let's keep moving," Wyatt urged as they pressed deeper into enemy lines. The Noir Navio strikes. From afar, Wyatt watched as the Noir Navio unleashed its full arsenal upon the Drajan fleet. Plasma cannons fired in synchronized harmony, beams of energy tore through enemy ships like paper. The sight filled him with awe. This was power unleashed against those who sought to destroy them. Suddenly, alarms blared within Vanguard. "Warning! Shields at 50%. A voice echoed through his cockpit. Panic surged within him. They were taking heavy fire from multiple directions. "Rian! We need to regroup," he shouted over comms. The squadron began maneuvering together again, forming a defensive formation around each other as they fought back against overwhelming odds. They were not just pilots, they were family fighting for survival against an unyielding enemy. A moment of reflection. As they battled fiercely against the Drajan forces, moments passed like hours, each second filled with tension and uncertainty. In fleeting moments between attacks, Wyatt found himself reflecting on what brought them here, the sacrifices made by those who came before them and those who fought alongside them now. He thought about home, the quiet nights under starlit skies and laughter shared with friends before war had come crashing into their lives like an unstoppable wave. It fueled his resolve. He would fight not just for survival but for every life touched by this conflict. The turning point. Just when it seemed like defeat loomed closer than ever before, a massive energy buildup caught Wyatt's attention. He turned his gaze toward the Noir Navio just in time to see its spinal-mounted pulse beam cannon charging up, a weapon capable of delivering devastating blows against even the toughest foes. "Commander Redford is going for it," Rian exclaimed over comms as excitement bubbled within them both. Wyatt held his breath as he watched energy coalesce at the ship's bow, a brilliant blue light that promised destruction aimed squarely at one of the largest Drajan cruisers looming ahead. "Don't miss," Wyatt whispered under his breath, a prayer sent into chaos surrounding them all. The devastation unleashed. With a blinding flash that illuminated space like daylight for an instant, the pulse beam cannon fired. A superheated stream of particles surged forward with incredible force. It collided violently against the cruiser's shields in an explosion that lit up everything around it. Wyatt felt exhilaration wash over him as he witnessed firsthand how power could turn tides in battle, but it wasn't over yet. The Drajan forces were still regrouping for another assault. "We need to capitalize on this. Push forward," Yarrick commanded through gritted teeth, his voice filled with urgency that resonated deeply within everyone aboard Vanguard and beyond. With renewed vigor coursing through them all, they surged ahead into battle once more, Wyatt leading alongside Rian, determined not just to survive but to reclaim their home from those who threatened everything they held dear. The storm had arrived, and they would face it head-on. Beneath the surface. The discovery. Kellen, a young scout for the Alliance, was crouched behind a rocky outcrop on the desolate surface of the planet Varenthia. His heart raced as he peered through his binoculars, scanning the horizon for any signs of the Zarkan fleet. It had been weeks since the last skirmish, and tension hung thick in the air. The Alliance was at a critical juncture, and Kellen knew that every piece of information could tip the scales in their favor. As he focused on the distant mountains, a glint of metal caught his eye. He adjusted his binoculars and gasped. There it was, a Zarkan supply ship, hidden among the crags and boulders. Kellen's mind raced as he realized what this could mean: supplies meant for their forces, potentially loaded with weapons and technology that could turn the tide of battle. The decision. Kellen's heart pounded in his chest as he weighed his options. He could report this to Commander Redford immediately, but that would mean a long trek back to base. Alternatively, he could take matters into his own hands and gather intel directly from the supply ship. The latter option was risky, but Kellen felt a surge of determination. This was his chance to prove himself. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. With stealthy movements, Kellen navigated through the rocky terrain toward the supply ship. The closer he got, the more adrenaline surged through him. He had trained for moments like this but had never imagined he would face such danger alone. Infiltration. As Kellen approached the supply ship, he noticed 2 Zarkan guards stationed outside, their weapons at the ready. He quickly ducked behind a nearby boulder and assessed his surroundings. There were no other guards in sight, but he knew better than to underestimate their vigilance. With careful precision, Kellen waited for a moment when both guards turned their backs to him. Seizing the opportunity, he darted toward the ship's entrance, slipping inside just as one of them glanced over his shoulder. Inside, darkness enveloped him. He fumbled for a moment before activating his wrist flashlight, illuminating a narrow corridor lined with crates. Each crate was marked with Zarkan insignias that made Kellen's stomach churn. These were weapons meant for destruction. Gathering intel. Kellen moved quickly down the corridor, listening intently for any signs of movement. He reached a large control room filled with screens displaying data about troop movements and supply routes. His eyes widened as he realized how valuable this information was. It could provide crucial insights into Zarkan strategies. He quickly pulled out his data pad and began recording everything he could see on the screens. As he worked, Kellen felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was what it meant to be part of something bigger than himself. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Kellen's heart dropped as red lights flashed ominously around him. "Intruder alert," echoed a mechanical voice over loudspeakers. The escape. Panic surged through him. He had to get out before they caught him. Kellen dashed back down the corridor, retracing his steps as fast as possible. He could hear footsteps approaching. Zarkan soldiers were closing in on him. As he reached the entrance where he had come in, Kellen spotted one of the guards standing there, now fully alert and ready for action. In an instant decision, he leaped to one side and rolled behind another crate just as blaster fire erupted around him. "Where are you?" shouted one of the guards angrily. Kellen's heart raced. He needed to think fast. He spotted an emergency exit on the far side of the room, a chance at escape. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Kellen bolted toward it while dodging incoming fire. A narrow escape. He reached the emergency exit just in time. Pushing it open with all his strength, Kellen stumbled outside into the open air. The moment he stepped out, he felt a rush of freedom mixed with fear. The sound of blaster fire echoed behind him as Zarkan soldiers poured out after him. Kellen sprinted across rocky terrain toward safety, adrenaline propelling him forward despite exhaustion threatening to slow him down. He could hear shouts behind him urging others to pursue. They were not far behind. Just when it seemed like they would catch up to him, Kellen spotted a narrow crevice between 2 large rocks, a potential hiding spot. Without hesitation, he dove into it and pressed himself against the cool stone wall. Regrouping. Breathless and trembling with fear and excitement, Kellen listened intently as footsteps passed by outside his hiding place. He held his breath until silence enveloped him once more. He had escaped, for now. After several minutes passed without any sign of pursuit, Kellen cautiously emerged from his hiding spot and surveyed his surroundings. The Zarkan supply ship loomed ominously nearby. It was clear they would be searching for him for quite some time. With renewed determination coursing through him, Kellen made his way back toward base, his heart racing with thoughts of what he had discovered inside that ship. This intel could change everything. It was worth risking everything to gather it. The return. As Kellen approached Alliance headquarters under cover of darkness, relief washed over him like a wave crashing onto shore. He had made it back alive, and with vital information that could help turn the tide against their enemies. "Scout Kellen," exclaimed Lieutenant Mira as she spotted him entering through the main doors. "Where have you been?" We thought you were lost. I found something, Kellen replied breathlessly as he rushed toward her office. Something big. Myra's eyes widened with curiosity as she motioned for him to follow her inside where they could discuss without interruption. The revelation. Once inside her office, Kellen quickly recounted everything that had happened, the discovery of the Zarkan supply ship and all that he had seen within its walls. Mira listened intently as she took notes on her data pad. This is huge, she said finally after processing all of his information. We need to present this to Commander Redford immediately. Kellen nodded eagerly. This was what he had hoped for, to make an impact on their fight against oppression. Together they rushed down corridors filled with bustling soldiers preparing for battle, each one fueled by hope amidst uncertainty. A new hope. When they reached Commander Redford's war room filled with maps and tactical displays illuminated by screens showing live feeds from various fronts, Kellen felt both nervousness and excitement bubbling within him again. Commander. Mira called out as they entered. Redford turned from discussing strategy with other officers upon hearing her voice. What is it? Redford asked curiously before noticing Kellen standing beside her looking determined yet anxious at once. I found intel on Zarkan troop movements, Kellen blurted out before taking a deep breath to steady himself again. This was it. They have a supply ship hidden near Varenthia loaded with weapons meant for our forces. Redford's expression shifted from curiosity to seriousness as he listened intently while Mira filled in details about Kellen's daring infiltration mission, the risks taken, and what they could do next based on this newfound knowledge. Planning their next move. As discussions unfolded around them about how best to utilize this intelligence against their enemies, the atmosphere shifted from despair toward hope once more. Kellen felt invigorated knowing that despite all odds stacked against them, they were readying themselves for another fight. This time armed not only with courage but also knowledge gained from daring actions taken under pressure. And so began preparations once more, a new chapter unfolding amidst chaos, where every life mattered, and every decision counted. They would fight together against tyranny, united by purpose fueled by resilience, and unwavering determination. The battle was far from over, but now they held an advantage that might just tip things in their favor. The final stand. The gathering of forces. As the dust settled from the initial onslaught, Wyatt Staples felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. The pulse beam cannon had struck true, but the battle was far from over. The Zarkan forces were regrouping, their ships moving with a sense of purpose that sent a chill down Wyatt's spine. He knew they would retaliate fiercely, and the Valor's edge was still in the thick of it. All pilots, report status. Commander Redford's voice crackled over the comms, cutting through the chaos. Wyatt quickly checked in with his squadron, relieved to hear that most were still operational, albeit shaken. Wyatt here. Vanguard is intact and ready for action, he replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil around him. Rian, status? Redford continued. Still flying, Commander. But we need to regroup and prepare for their counterattack, Rian responded, his tone laced with urgency. The Zarkan counterattack. Just as they finished their check-ins, the Zarkan fleet surged forward like a tidal wave. Their ships moved in perfect formation, weapons primed and ready to unleash hell upon the Alliance forces. Wyatt's heart raced as he watched the enemy vessels close in on them. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Redford commanded. We need to spread out and avoid their fire. Wyatt maneuvered Vanguard with precision, weaving through incoming plasma bolts that illuminated space like shooting stars. He could feel the tension in the air as his fellow pilots followed suit, each one determined to survive against overwhelming odds. Suddenly, a massive Zarkan cruiser loomed ahead, its weapons charging up for a devastating strike. Wyatt's instincts kicked in, he knew they had to take it down before it could unleash its fury. Coordinating an assault. Focus fire on that cruiser. Wyatt shouted over the comms. We can't let it get a shot off. The squadron rallied around him as they targeted the cruiser together. Wyatt felt a sense of camaraderie as they worked in unison, each pilot contributing their skills to bring down their common enemy. With a deep breath, Wyatt pressed the trigger on his controls. Laser fire erupted from Vanguard, striking the cruiser's shields with precision. Explosions lit up the darkness as missiles launched from nearby fighters, creating a symphony of destruction. But just as victory seemed within reach, the cruiser retaliated with its own barrage of firepower. Wyatt's heart sank as he watched one of his squadron members get caught in the crossfire, a brilliant flash followed by silence. A call for resilience. Stay focused. We can't let them break our formation. Redford's voice rang out through their comms, rallying them back to their mission. Wyatt gritted his teeth. He couldn't afford to dwell on loss now. They were fighting for their lives and for those who had already fallen. With renewed determination, he pressed forward into battle once more. As they continued their assault on the cruiser, Wyatt noticed something strange, a flicker of movement at the edge of his sensors. He glanced at his display and saw another Zarkan ship moving stealthily toward their flank. "Rian! Watch your left!" Wyatt shouted just as blaster fire erupted from the hidden ship. Rian barely managed to evade it, but not without sustaining damage to his fighter. "I'm hit. I can't maintain full speed," he exclaimed, panic creeping into his voice. A heroic rescue. Without thinking twice, Wyatt veered toward Rian's position. "Hold tight. I'm coming," he called out as he engaged the enemy ship that had ambushed them. With deft maneuvers and precise shots, Wyatt drew fire away from Rian while targeting the enemy vessel's weak points. He could feel every pulse of energy from his ship's systems as he fought against time and odds. "Thanks for covering me," Rian shouted over comms as he regained control of his fighter. "Let's take this one down together," Wyatt urged as they coordinated their attacks once more. The two pilots worked in perfect harmony, dodging enemy fire while delivering punishing blows against their adversary. The turning tide. As they fought back against the Zarkan forces, something shifted in the air. The tide was turning in their favor. The Noir Navio's heavy artillery continued to rain destruction upon enemy ships while Valor's Edge provided support from behind. "Commander Redford has ordered a full assault," Mira announced over comms as she relayed information from command. "We're pushing forward." Wyatt felt hope swell within him. This could be their moment. They pressed onward together, every pilot fueled by a shared purpose and unwavering determination to protect their home. With each enemy ship that fell before them, morale surged among the Alliance forces. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for freedom against tyranny. The final push. As they approached the heart of the Zarkan fleet, Wyatt spotted Commander Redford at the helm of Noir Navio coordinating attacks with fierce precision. It was clear that Redford had become an embodiment of hope amidst chaos, his leadership inspiring everyone around him. "Let's finish this," Redford declared over comms as they prepared for one last push against what remained of the Zarkan forces. Wyatt felt exhilaration course through him. This was it, the moment they had all been waiting for. With every ounce of strength left within him, he rallied his squadron once more. "Follow my lead. We go in hard and fast," he commanded as they surged toward their final targets, the remaining Zarkan cruisers desperately trying to regroup under heavy fire. A climactic showdown. The battle reached its climax. Laser beams crisscrossed through space while explosions lit up every corner of the battlefield like fireworks celebrating victory yet still tinged with sorrow for those lost along the way. Wyatt fought fiercely alongside Rian and their squadron, each pilot pushing themselves beyond limits as they unleashed everything they had against their foes. Finally breaking through enemy lines, Wyatt locked onto one last cruiser, their final target, and unleashed everything he had left within Vanguard. With blinding flashes illuminating space around them, the cruiser erupted into flames, a testament to their hard-fought victory. Aftermath and reflection. As silence fell over what remained of the battlefield, Wyatt took a moment to breathe deeply amidst chaos now fading into memory, a bittersweet reminder of both triumph and loss intertwined forever within his heart. "Good work out there." Rian cheered over comms, a sound filled with relief and joy after surviving yet another harrowing battle together. But even amidst celebration, Wyatt knew that this was only one chapter closed within an ongoing war. They would continue fighting until peace returned once more. As they regrouped around Noir Navio, Wyatt looked out at distant stars shining brightly above, their light piercing through darkness, a symbol of hope that would guide them forward into whatever lay ahead.